and stuff like that, asking people, do you have an experience of bi-temporal event sourcing stuff? And Greg answered me a link toward his blog. And when he's talking, yes, retroactive events, the answer is yes, we can build event sourcing systems like this, and it works very well for those kind of systems. And he was talking about two kind of projections, two modes of projection, two projection modes. First one is as of, and second one is as at. I will describe this. As of is as we should have known. It means that we take patches, we take retroactive events into account, and we project a stream with that mode for that purpose. So as of is really as we should have known. Whereas as at is as we knew at the time. What was the state of the fund as we knew at that date? So it's kind of very useful for audit trails, because like this you can understand what was our perception of the world of the fund at that date, because otherwise you will be kind of a victim of insight bias. Now it's easy to say that it was a bad decision or things like that. If you have the ability, like a time machine, to get the view of the market you had at the past, you can understand much better some kind of stupid decisions or brilliant decisions when you want to understand that. So two modes of projection: as we should have known, building patches, and as at, as we knew for the unit trails. Okay. Since we have a models, let's find some examples to do that. So at the time, we had lots of workshops, and we were trying to figure out all the cases we can have. We have here some kind of as-at projections here, at that also, as of, and every time with the eyes, we wanted to see what would be the property of that fund, the name of that fund at that date. It was a tiny model for sketch notes or white paper, very useful. And without that, there is no way we can understand each other with the business and also among the dev teams. Without that support, the modeling format, it would have been a nightmare. It was very complicated. Some workshops were very complicated just to be sure that we understood well the need and the intention of the business. But without that, it would have been a nightmare. So as of, let's take the first projection mode, as we should have known. That was basically our main usage, taking retroactive events and patches into account. So imagine a stream of 3 events for a fund, and let's see how those events have been saved over the time. So this is my timeline. I've got a first event, fund created with a name. We just focus on the name of the fund, but there are many properties and characteristics for a fund, but just focus on the name. So January 1st, we create a fund with a name, first name. Then January 1st, the year after, we rename it that official name. And then we realized that on April 1st, we should have known that the fund has been renamed. From first name, it should have been patched name on April 1st, 16. And then 1 year after, official name is the last name. So let's do some as-of projection exercise if you want. Maybe Alexis, I will use your help to have this kind of interactive session with you. I will ask you, should I apply or not apply that event every time? That would be the game.
Okay.
So let's say we want to project the aggregate on June 1st, like here, okay? June 1st is the projection date here. And basically, I would like to know the name of the fund in the as we should have known mode. First event here, should I apply it or not?
Yeah.
Let's we are the projection code. We are the so yes, yeah, apply. So we apply it here, okay, and then we change the name of the fund with first name. All right. Second event was official name, January 1st. Should I apply it or not?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. It's a kind of warm-up. It's a very easy exercise.
Okay.
Maybe it will be more complicated after. And this one, the last one, patch name or retroactive event, should I apply it or not?
As we should have known, yes.
Actually, not in that case, because if I stick to my simple heuristic of projecting all events, forecasting and going forward only, and just filtering, if I apply it here on my aggregate, I will eclipse the official name. And since patch name was a kind of temporary name during the year, but the last name is very official name, in that case, I should not apply it.
I'm a bit confused. So,
okay, tell me.
So at where the patch name comes from. So there was an event that was emitted the 1st of June and applied back there. Oh, so okay, actually, yeah. So like for this particular state, yes. So because it was off before the official name, we should ignore it because there is an event later. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Since it was a retroactive event, but since it occurred later, if I take it, the value, and replace it, apply it on the name property of my fund aggregate, I will eclipse the official name. And since I want to project it at June 1st,
and if we would be looking at December 2016, then we will get patch name.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
And without applying the official name events, the classic events, January 1st. Absolutely. So here, following that projection heuristic, we end with official name as the name of the fund projected at June 1st. So that date here with the eyes. With the eyes are representing the projection date, the date where I want to project the state of my aggregate. Let's take the same events, but with another projection date, just to continue the exercise. Here we want to project it on April 1st. So we still have the same events, okay, so same line, but now we want to project. It's the same projection mode as we should have known, taking into account the patches and retroactive. But at a different date, here the eyes are looking at the April 1st. So first event, should we apply or not?
Yes.
Yes, of course, we apply it. Second one, should we apply or not? Absolutely. And this one, should we apply or not?
Yes.
Yes, because actually the valid from dates match my projection in that case. Okay, shall we apply? And then we end up with the fund patch name. Okay, a very simple heuristic in that case. The other mode is the ASAT, the audit trail, as we knew at the time. So basically, for the audit trail and without taking too much into consideration the retroactive events. So same events, same timeline, but in different mode. We will project it differently to have a kind of vision, a different vision of our world. Same world, but different perspective. So we will like to project it on April 1st, in that case. What will be the name of the fund on April 1st? So it will be patch name or not.
First name.
Yes, absolutely, because it's audit mode. On April 1st, we didn't know already that on June 1st, the next year, we will have realized that the fund has been renamed. This has been discovered later. So it's a shame for us, but at the time on April 1st, we didn't know that already. So this one, we apply it. And this one, we don't we do not apply it because it's after the eyes. And this one, we do not apply it because it's after the eyes and we are in the audit mode projection. We do not apply. So we end up with just an aggregate with the first name as a property here. Okay, and then we will finish with same events, but same event with another projection date. So we keep the audit trail mode without retroactive events, okay? And same events, and we will project it on June 1st here. We want to know what will be the state of the fund on June 1st. So this one we apply.
Yeah.
This one we apply because it's before. Okay, and this one should we apply or
no?
No, absolutely, because it will eclipse. It will hide the. And since the eyes are June 1st, we don't want that to happen. So we do not apply. So as you can see, the project, the very simple. The simplest projector in event sourcing is just taking a stream of events and applying them one by one. In our case, we just have a filter, either a ASAT filter or as-of filter mode for our projection, and we project the very same stream of events, but with different strategy for should I apply or not. Still with me? It was first, I guess you are still with me, Alexei, but this slide was before it was the end of a conference in Paris. So I was supposing maybe I will lost some people with that exercise. Challenge number 5. There are 7 challenges, by the way. Number 5, how to produce a report from March 1st, like if we had made it on June 1st. Challenge. We don't want to suffer from insight bias. Now we know that lots of things has been changed, and we should have known stuff that we didn't knew. And we need to understand how we had perceived the world in the past, and we should not see some events that happen after a viewpoint. So, how to produce a report for March 1st, like if we had made it June 1st. This was the kind of complicated use case I got during the first months of this project. So here I want to produce a report with the date March 1st written in the report, describing the fund on March 1st. But like if I've made the report on June 1st, meaning taking all the retroactive events that has been applied between that date and that date. Let's see with a concrete example. It will be better. So here we have a stream of events with February 1st, name 1, and then we have retroactive events, name 2, to fix the name. The day before, the February 2nd. And then we have a kind of retroactive event here. On July 1st, we discovered that the name of the fund has been changed in the real world on February 28th. We didn't know that when we built the report for the fund on March 1st. Now we knew that. Now we know that. So ideally, this report made for the fund with the value date March 1st should have taken that information into account, but that was not the case at the time. So the idea is to, like taking a time machine, and what if I rebuild the report? So we have kind of report target date. This is the date I want to write down within my report for the state of the fund on March 1st. And we have a kind of another concept here, which is the date of the report. The date where I will compute all the data that I need to build a report and build it. As you can see, name 5 has been discovered after the date where I'm supposed to build the report, so I'm not supposed to be aware of that information. So basically, we will apply all events created before June 1st. So all events created before the viewpoint. The viewpoint is the eyes. Sorry, the viewpoint is here. I will take all the events until the date I was supposed to build the report, and we won't apply all the events created after the day I was supposed to build the report. Okay. So name 1, I will apply that. Name 2, I will apply it. And name 5, I won't apply it because it happened after the date I was supposed to generate the report. It's a little bit complicated. Actually, it was one of our main understanding issue, because with the terminology of the business, it was very obvious for them, and for us, it was very complicated to grasp. It was the main topic of my talk at DDD Europe. Okay, that use case brings us 2 new concepts. Okay, the concept of viewpoint, the eyes for the report generation, and as of until, which is a new projection mode. So far, we talk about as of projection mode and ASAT. As of with retroactive events, ASAT for audit trail purpose. As of until, it's a new projection mode. Sorry, I will get back here. In order to be able to have got a projection date and a viewpoint. Sorry, and a viewpoint. My point of view is that was the date of my vision of the world. Okay. The day on June 1st, I was aware of everything that has happened so far until June 1st. But like if I was on June 1st, I take the time machine and now I'm in June 1st. What should I see if I wanted to rebuild the report, but report valid and signed for March 1st? I won't invest a little bit more on that. It was a kind of complicated use case, but through that new kind of projection mode, as of until, we succeeded we managed to make it. So when we have our event sourced repository for our fund, we have a get as of until for a unique identifier for an aggregate, with a projection date on March 1st and a viewpoint, which was my vision of the world on June 1st. Okay. Since we are developers, I suggest that we have the same example, but with code. It's kind of naive code. Our tests were not, and like this, it was for the POC, the code of the POC. But what's really matter here, we have a kind of acceptance test, should not apply retroactive events created after the viewpoint. Here, we have an in-memory bus, we have an event store. In-memory event store, we have a repository, event store backed repository for a fund. And then we have an identifier for the fund. This is the setup. We replace all those steps by builders after, but first we create the fund. So we instantiate a new fund create. It's like a fund created event, and we save the event into our in-memory event store. Then we apply a patch, and then we apply another patch to rename in the past, and then we rename the fund again. And then actually the test is when I ask the repository with as of until projection mode for those dates, I should have, let me zoom. Actually, I have some kind of thing like that. Fund created is the first dot, name 1, on February 1. As you can see, this is matched with this event, new fund create. This is the second event, fond renommé patch. It's the name of the fund has changed event. It's in French, sorry, but it means the name of the fund has changed. It's on February here. February 3rd is the created date of the event, and the valid from of the event is February 2nd. So we create here and we apply here. The last event is name 5. It's le nom du fonds a changé. It's again, we have renamed the fund. The name is name 5 with those dates. July 1st is the creation date of the event, and February 28th is the valid from the application date for that event. Okay, and then I ask my repository get by ID as of until with a projection at March 1st, here, projection date, and a viewpoint. What was my point of view of the world when we were June 1st here? And then I get name 2. Because June 1st, we didn't know that the fund has been renamed February 28th. We knew that after, we knew that in July, but that's it. Okay, challenge number 6, retroactive commands versus retroactive events. Events are facts, okay? And commands are used to take decisions and to raise events. Commands may fail. Events are facts. They are not supposed to fail. They are just observations. So what should we do with retroactive? How should we create something that happens in the past? Let's play a game. Answer number A, we should apply a retroactive command to an aggregated projected in the past. We project an aggregate in the past at a given date in the past, and then we apply a command at the very same onto that aggregate. The command may fail, so we may raise new events or not, and that's the first option. Second option, we just create an event in the past for the aggregate. We just create, like we just saw before, and see the answer C. So, Alexei, do you have some kind of ID?
Yeah, I would go
A,
for
B, or
B,
C.
because you basically cannot execute a command in the past. You're trying to compensate for something that you recorded and you found out later that that wasn't correct, and therefore you compensate.
Was what we thought initially, but that was the answer here, because there is no suite, there is no.
Yeah.
It's the context really matter, as we knew, but mostly we picked the option A, and we had some kind of use case. There are some simple events. Simple retroactive events are just okay. I just learned that the fund has been renamed in the last month. Okay, easy, we rename the fund. But in some cases, that some events should trigger some kind of actions on their sides. See, when they realize that something has changed, they had to do some stuff. And in that case, it should trigger some kind of actions, so commands, to be executed in the past, and that may fail or not, or that may not fail, but that may end with different result and things like that. So it's really context dependent. There is no unique answer and something like that. We had both cases actually, but I left the project long time ago, so I didn't know where they end with in terms of proportion, but. Okay, last challenge. Is UTC enough? Okay, we store instance in our event store. Events as timestamps, and timestamps are kind of instance. Some events are applied on and valid from an entire day. Let's say June 8th. For our business, that was they didn't care about June 8th at 2 o'clock. It was just on June 8th, and the fund has been is released or is closed or something like that. So, which timestamp should we pick to describe a day? If we have an event that applies for the whole day, which instant should we pick for it? And also, another question is UTC enough to store all instances? Or do we need some extra information? So let's just sum up for the audience. UTC is Universal Time Coordinated, primary time standards in order to regulate clock and time. It's a little bit more complex than that, but I won't dive into the details. But I can send you, for the audience, a very interesting blog post from a friend talking about that in details. it does not, what we should remember is it does not observe daylight saving times. So
like
basically,
a clue, you're giving us a clue now.
yeah. Absolutely. An instant, what an instant is described when something happened. Can be interpreted as a particular time zone and calendar systems. Here we have a timestamps, an instance for 18 May of 18th, 4 o'clock and 40 minutes and 35 seconds. And Z here means UTC. And UTC means you don't add any time zone. So plus 0 hour to that. In C# it's the time offset. In Java I can't remember, but for the instance. So let's take an example. What does June 8th even mean for Istanbul? Plus 3 hours, Paris, UTC plus 2, or Oslo, UTC plus 2, and UTC, okay? What does June 8th even mean? For Istanbul, it starts here on the timeline and ends here. It starts here and ends here, June 8th. Okay, yeah, here. Before it was June 7th, and then after it's June 8th. Okay. In Paris, it's like this. It ends after, it starts after, and it ends after, and for UTC. So the question is, should event 1 here in blue be involved in a June 8th projections? Let's say I want to project my fund at June 8th. The question is, should I take into account the event 1? Basically, the answer is only if June 8th Paris time, because June 8th Paris time is not June 8th Istanbul. That kind of slight difference. So here, yes, we need. So this kind of way of displaying stuff was very useful for us in order to have discussions with the business. So here, UTC time is mandatory. To store and compare every instance, because at the end of the day, our projection mechanism deal with timestamp with instance, and it was important for us to know. So okay, UTC is mandatory to compare 2 instances, to compare 2 timestamps, but it's not enough. If we don't know that we need to apply on that time zone, it does not work. We can't project properly. So that means that we need a UTC time plus the time zone of the event. Easy. Not really, because actually, what does mean the time zone of the events? What does it mean? Is it the time zone of the action that triggers the event? Let's say we have a fund, a manager that works in HK in Hong Kong and does some actions. Should we take into account his actions or her actions, Hong Kong time zone? Or should we take another time zone? Maybe the time zone associated with the topics. Maybe we have some kind of time zone associated to a fund, thing like that. So time zone of the events, again, is kind of implicit for the business. When you start talking with them, they're kind of rough, implicit, very important to realize. Actually, there is no. Again, it's dependent on the context. For kind of, we had to deal some kind of umbrellas. Umbrellas is a fund in Luxembourg. For umbrellas, even if the manager works in HK, every one of his action or her actions should be applied with the time zone of the umbrellas, meaning the time zone of Luxembourg. This is for one case. For others, it may be different. The opening session for a fund and things like that, it may be. It depends on the context, basically. But those are the kind of questions we are supposed to ask and yourself in order to be able to build a working machine for projecting all your events, either on the right side to get restored and ready to work, or on the read side. Okay, I will wrap up. First thing, when you work on some kind of topic like this, you are kind of discovering the unknown. The kind of issue with the UTC and time zone, etc. You usually you discover them during your journey, and it's really complicated. Lots of things are changing every time in your model, in your vision of the problem, etc., etc. So without concrete examples, you are dead, actually. If you are not working with concrete example, you can talk and talk and talk, have lots of workshops and meetings and things like that. You will have the feeling and the impression that you just understood what they want, and you will fail. Actually, I failed a lot before I managed to find that representation of the timeline with the dot and the arrows and things like that. Before that, it was kind of a nightmare. Some of them on the IT side have a vision of like a matrix with a kind of two dates, and they were doing some kind of graph for the business people that didn't match. So we end up with that timeline and dots and arrows. But without that, we were really dead. What's important is really to take concrete examples and to find a model, a way of sharing the problem onto a wall, or to share your mutual understanding. Of course, we've made some event storming sessions, we've made a lot of things like that. But in that really typical particular case of bi-temporal, in order to take some kind of exception, corner cases and things like that, we needed to find a way to collaborate with the business, and also among us on the IT side. And more than ever, with that kind of topic, I would really suggest Ygna principle. Basically, you ain't gonna need it, meaning that if you don't need something, don't build it just because you think you will need it maybe the week after or things like that. Why that? Because let me ask you a question. If you build that sandcastle, my question is, would you dare to destroy it? No, I don't think so. So if you start building a complex model because you have some kind of assumptions one day, and you say, okay, I think I get their problems, stuff like that. No, there are some kind of discussions on Twitter about rework. I don't like rework, stuff like that. No, this kind of thing happens. Your vision of the world, even if you are doing some event storming, even if you are doing really sessions a lot with the business, the model will change. So Ygna, just build what you need for the day of your demo, of your release. In that kind of moving sense is really a tip that I would like to push. Also, because over-engineering is kind of embarrassment to ourselves. I mean, I think it's one of our bias as developers, or maybe when I was younger, as a young architect, I needed to rehearse myself playing with patterns and how they match, and so I've made some kind of a gas factory frameworks and silly thing like that. It's interesting maybe to learn some stuff, so as side project, but yeah, you suffer a lot after if you have like a gas factory for that. Since our understanding was changing all the time, and this is the reason why I get prepared to design breakthrough. It should be normal for you to say, okay, maybe tomorrow or the next week we will destroy all our models. I didn't detail everything here in that presentation, but there are some late discoveries after during the first time when I made the talk at DDD Europe. I was saying at the end, as a conclusion, okay, the beautiful model with timelines and dots and arrows I found, actually maybe our projection mode, we need to review everything because the business just told us last week that they needed kind of session. The concept of a session for our business was, I want to do lots of changes, and I want all those changes to be related to some kind of session. And when I change the date of that, I want the change of the date to be applied on all events related to that session. You know what I mean? So all the projection, implementation, heuristic you will have, etc. You will, okay, you break everything and you build a new one, because yes, the business, it was obvious for the business that all changes related to that fund in that specific context were cohesive and part of a.
I would ask the fund a question: is it even legal? Because it sounds really fishy that, oh, let's change the date to yesterday. It's like, we've done a lot of stuff. I mean, I would be really careful. That's probably the time that you need to start asking questions, and maybe you just need to check out of that organization and say goodbye to them.
No, absolutely, and these are the kind of questions we have with the business. And actually, the audit mode was here on purpose. It was here to, okay, the thing that I can change because I was not really reading the news and being aware of what changed in the world, I can change them. And some other stuff, I'm not supposed to change that. So again, it was related to every command or thing like that. So design breakthrough happened a lot. So it happened just before my first talk at DDD Europe. So I was kind of 1 week before, I was kind of, fuck, I need to crash all my talk, because everything I'm talking and explaining in my talk may change with that breaking news. So I was kind of, and I'll talk about it. And then we have this kind of session, and after DDD Europe, they told us what they have in mind, and we changed the model. First big design breakthrough. And a third one was when he arrived with, I told you that we picked the strategy of projection of forward only and with filters. So tonight we play that game all together. Should we apply? Yes, no, yes, no. Actually, they came with a new requirement that said, I want to cancel an event. I want to cancel an event. This event is a consequence of an action that I shouldn't take. I was not supposed to take that action. So, okay, for the audit trail, everyone will know that I did it. But now, for the good shape of my company and the management of that fund, I want to cancel that, because it makes a lot of dirty events in the UI. It will add lots of noise. Okay, so please, if I cancel that, I want all these events to disappear. When you have that kind of heuristic, forward-only heuristic, and a cancellation may happen after and in between two different stuff, it may be a nightmare. So
you went to the third one.
No, so the second one, actually.
Okay.
We went to the second one, and because also we realized that the number of events for every one of our stream was kind of limited. A fund, okay, it's maybe 1,000, 2,000.
Okay, you can read the whole
events,
thing, right?
You can, yes, just in memory, you get the stream of event from the event store, Young event store product, and then you sort them, and it's end of story. So it's easy to do that on the right side, but on the read side, when you need to project and you receive through the event store bus, all the events, it's not, so the same thing applied. Actually, we couldn't manage to do some kind of ABC or one-on-one read side projector strategy to do some upserts on the SQL Server database that was backed our read view. Our read side projectors had the same projector strategy, the same projector modes, but rebuilding everything and updating the entire tuple or entry in our relational database. So the same thing applies. With that new requirement, we explode all our models or implementation for the read side and things like that. So yes, get prepared to design breakthrough. This is okay. This is our job. As a developer, things happen, things change every time. I should welcome that with a smile. It's okay. I will have to break everything from time to time. That was it for my slides in the talk.
All right. So let's do some questions. I basically want to start with the question that is it came in Q&A. So the question is it possible for an event to modify several properties at once, but only one of the properties is changed by the future event with valid from? So it's like you can put the timestamp not on the whole event, but on the property of the event. I think no. I say like either the whole thing applies or nothing. But
absolutely. And in some cases, we have some kind of I can't remember. It was a long time ago. Now I'm working on a completely different thing, but I think we have some kind of key value bags of information related to a fund or something like that, and we needed to apply like in a message bus. I work a lot in finance with a message-oriented middleware, stuff like that. And you have some kind of delta. You are working with deltas. You have a state of the world, and then you receive one update for one field, another update for the second field, and things like that. And then you replace one field if you have previously received value, and you create a new one if you never received that value for that field, for instance. So you make some kind of delta conflation and things like that. We had to implement that I think it was for the umbrellas kind of fun. To do so, we had kind of events storing with a bags of key value, and sometimes we have 2 key values for one event, and the events after we have 1 key value or 3 key values, etc. So we keep the concept of events, and timestamps were only applied on the events and not on sub fields or sub.
My opinion is that events basically conveys the intent. I mean, the intent is a holistic thing, so you want to do that, or you have done that, and it's like I have done that but not entirely doesn't really fit in my head. For example, it's like either you have done it or you haven't done it, or you have done something else, so just then translate it to another version of your event or to a different event, or you need 2 events basically. One represents one change transition, another event represents second change transition. But I have another question. So
unless you want to relate, or you want to correlate those events, in that case, the concept of session we had to introduce to follow our business was kind of like this. Every event has 2 timestamps, but some of those events have kind of a session ID. And then in that case, all our projection mechanism and logic were just working on the timestamp of the session. So we have an event for session has been created. Every different various events inserted in various days or months or weeks, but related to that period of time, join the session. And actually, we discard the timestamp of the events related to a session, because in that case, there's only one valid from date or instant. It is the one of the session. So meaning that even the patch of the session, I didn't talk about it, but we have some kind of use case with I want to change the date of an event. So I don't want to override or hide a previous event with a new one. I just want to, it was for the session, I want to move the entire session and all the events into another valid from date. So we had lots of funny thing. I would say it was an interesting project from the business side.
I have something similar in our practice because we were analyzing driving behavior, and there were situations when there is a driver assigned to a vehicle, and when they were in the journey, they did something mad, and then after a while, they discovered that there was a wrong driver, so want someone else driving the vehicle, so they can change the journey to another driver. So it means that all the calculations for that particular journey need to move to another driver, meaning that both drivers' scores for driving behavior need to recalculate. And they both get some events inserted in their streams because this needs to kind of cancel the previous journey because I was not that driver. And the new driver gets, the proper driver gets all these events in his or her stream, which is, it's surprisingly common. It's not that edge-gazy as people might think, actually. So, but my question was, how do you deal with optimistic concurrency? It might not even apply to that domain, and I get this. So imagine that the timestamp is fine, but there is a chance that you get two updates happening at the same time with exactly the same timestamp, and we usually use the version of an aggregate to control that. But in this particular case, I'm not sure the version even applies, because like, how the hell you determine the version before, like 1 year back and stuff like that. So did you ever thought or even have this issue?
It reminds me something. What I for sure we are using the version of the events in our projection mechanism, and we didn't increment when we since some events may be discarded, since some events may be inserted in between, etc., etc. We our projector mechanism, our projector of the code, needed to rely a lot on the version of every event. For the filter, should I apply it or not? It was also related to those version number. So what I mean is we didn't have a kind of increment version number when we apply a stream of events in our aggregates. We took the exact version stored in every event we play onto our aggregates. We take that exact versions and we apply it or not into the aggregate. So it reminds me something. It's a long time ago, so it's kind of blurry for me. Maybe I can ask some former colleagues to see if they remind and get back to you with information like that.
I just know that, for example, in Event Store, if you write to the stream, you can supply an expected version, and if it doesn't match, it will throw because it says, well, something already happened when you were thinking about it. So even by this, we kind of either guarantee idempotency, because then if we try to write twice, and for example, once we didn't get a reply from one store, second time we write the same thing, it will ignore it because it already has the version, or we handle optimistic concurrency the same way. So I was wondering, technically, I mean, there are a lot of, like, the chances if we use any version, for example, to take an event store in particular and say, I don't care what's already there, just write my stuff because I know what I'm doing. But in high frequency writes, it might induce some issues. But in another case, if it's not that kind of domain, maybe it's not a problem. So I would say, as you said, without a particular context, it's hard to say if this is even an issue or not.
Yeah, for sure, we were using that version on the right side. What was the version of the world we had? What was the version number we had on the read side? That was embedded in every command we send, just to be aware of concurrency among the users, among as it's classical stuff. I can't remember any funky stuff we've made related to that version.
Okay, cool. All right, let me have a quick look on YouTube, and I don't see any questions. Unfortunately, the stream broke somewhere in the middle or at the very beginning, and someone pinged me on Twitter saying this, and I restarted the stream. But do not worry. So I record this the whole thing in Zoom, so I'll be able to pull it off and put it in YouTube if there is no full recording. And it seems like it's not, because the counter on YouTube is just 50 minutes, and we are here for 1.5 hours. So I'd guess I will just delete the recording that's produced by the Zoom or by the stream and put the proper one later on. So I guess if there are no more questions, I really enjoyed the talk because the problems are really interesting, and some of them I've never encountered in my practice. So I'd really like to kind of include it into my mental toolbox. And yeah,
actually, it's so interesting. I think I was it's been more than a year that I stopped working for that project. Now I'm working in the hospitality for hotels and different domain, very interesting too. But I was oh man, I would like to play again with that kind of event sourcing and bi-temporal event sourcing. So last week I started to write again. I didn't take the code when I left because it was for my client, but based on my memory and so I'm starting a project, and I was thinking maybe I can build a tool, something that will be useful. So I'm just starting for the fun, activity tracking tool, like for independent contractors and stuff like that, with forecast of I want to go into holiday, fortunately, hopefully, in the future, and changes. I was supposed to work that day, but actually I got sick and stuff like that. So I think I will play a little bit with that, because it's so interesting, this kind of how to code, how to it's like a junkie. I'm like a junkie. I need more. So I will just find a side project to to play it again with it.
I tell you one thing. Just wait for the day and minute when in your hospitality domain you will encounter exactly the same problem. Because when I started doing this in a very naive way for holiday properties, I very early discovered that it's way more complicated than I thought originally. And that was one of the cases that I actually tell people that, look, yes, I get it. So you don't want to introduce event sourcing to your system early on when you don't know what you're doing. You want to move fast. Sometimes you don't want to spend time on modeling the events and stuff like that. What I experienced, it was a one-man project, but I had real customers. So, and then when I discovered that, as every scheduling domain, it needs a concept of a day. I hope you discovered that too. I thought I'm almost a genius. Then I found out that Eve Reinhardt discovered the same in healthcare, and like everyone did. And now I thought, okay, at least I'm not dumber than them. So I'm in line. And then I say, okay, how do I just get my current state of the old reservation and stuff and translate this to all the stuff that I need to know in order to find out days that have things. And it tend to be immensely complex because I need to recover the timeline from the representation of the state as I know it now. So I was really pissed because I said I should have done event sourcing from day one, and then I would not have this problem. So
Jérémy Chassin is working in the hospitality industry also. And he's doing event sourcing since a very long time. And for that, absolutely. But I'm much more in a situation where my team is not ready to. There is kind of a learning curve. So my secret agenda is to make some kind of mob session with them outside the work. I will do it like this. If they want to join me as a mob, we will continue, and so that they will see it's not as much as complicated. It's different. But once you get it, there are lots of questions, but once you get it, it's maybe very,
you
very
can if they are kind of if they're not very French, if you can understand English, they can send it to your webinars, events to webinars that I've done. So there are 3 of them. and every time it's 2 hours, so 1.5 hours presentation and 1 hour, half an hour Q&A. And I went through all the basics of event sourcing, and at least I tried to cover everything, but there might be more.
Okay,
so
cool.
that's
that
might be
do it.
just when I basically coded through the very basic, starting from nothing. So I said, okay, let's start from nothing and let's see how quickly or slowly I can get to actually have something working. And it was decent. I mean, of course, I needed to copy paste some code, but overall, it was pretty fast still. So again, yeah, I don't want to steal the show. It's your talk, but it was really cool. I enjoyed it. I feel pity for people that didn't join. So
at least you were two.
yeah, but yes,
it was nice to see you also. Good.
But let's I will put it, I will not I will wait a little bit, and then I will put the full recording on YouTube and play an evil game now with them. So yeah, really well, and I hope to see you again someday soon here or in private or whatever. So you guys and girls listening to us, thank you all for coming. So follow Thomas on Twitter. I tweeted all about the webinar up front, and his tweet handle is over there. And enjoy your evening and have a good weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexei. See you soon.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.